It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is the most adaptable to change, that lives within the means available, and works cooperatively against common threats. The love for all living creatures is the most noble attribute of man. The most important factor in survival is neither intelligence nor strength, but adaptability. The world will not be inherited by the strongest, it will be inherited by those most able to change. It is not the biggest, the brightest, or the best that will survive, but those who adapt the quickest. The man who dares to waste 1 hour of time has not discovered the value of life. Everything in nature is the result of fixed laws. Ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge. Man, wonderful man, must collapse into nature's cauldron. He is no deity, he is no exception. Much love, much trial, but what an utter desert is life without love. Even the humblest mammal's strong sexual, parental, and social instincts give rise to do unto others as yourself, and love thy neighbor as thyself. Some call it evolution, and others call it God. It is not the most intellectual of the species that survives, it is not the strongest that survives, but the species that survives is the one that is able best to adapt and adjust to the changing environment in which it finds itself. Till facts are grouped and called, there can be no prediction. The only advantage of discovering laws is to foretell what will happen, and to see bearing of scattered facts. There is no fundamental difference between man and animals in their ability to feel pleasure and pain, happiness and misery. A mathematician is a blind man in a dark room, looking for a black cat which isn't there. We are always slow in admitting any great change of which we do not see the intermediate steps. I never gave up Christianity until I was 40 years of age. The fact of evolution is the backbone of biology, and biology is thus in the peculiar position of being a science founded on an improved theory. Is it then a science or faith? It is always advisable to perceive clearly our ignorance. The moral faculties are generally and justly esteemed as of higher value than the intellectual powers. Nothing can be more improving to a young naturalist than a journey in a distant country. Besides love and sympathy, animals exhibit other qualities connected with the social instincts, which in us would be called moral. Often a cold shudder has run through me, and I have asked myself whether I may have not devoted myself to a fantasy. For the shield may be as important for victory as the sword or spear. Not one change of species into another is on record. We cannot prove that a single species has been changed. Why, if species have descended from other species by insensibly fine gradations, do we not everywhere see innumerable transitional forms? I am not apt to follow blindly the lead of other men. We are not here concerned with hopes or fears, only with truth as far as our reason permits us to discover it. An American monkey, after getting drunk on brandy, would never touch it again, and thus is much wiser than most men. Free will is to mind, what chance is to matter? The highest possible stage in moral culture is when we recognize that we ought to control our thoughts. I have tried lately to read Shakespeare and found it so intolerably dull that it nauseated me. Only picture to yourself a nice soft wife on a sofa with good fire and books and music. It is impossible to conceive of this immense and wonderful universe as the result of blind chance or necessity. In the struggle for survival, the fittest win out at the expense of their rivals, because they succeed in adapting themselves best to their environment. I have called this principle, by which each slight variation, if useful, is preserved, by the term of natural selection. If the misery of the poor be caused not by the laws of nature, but by our institutions, great is our sin. Man is descended from a hairy-tailed quadruped, probably arboreal in its habits. If I had my life to live over again, I would have made a rule to read some poetry and listen to some music at least once every week. Even people who aren't geniuses can outthink the rest of mankind if they develop certain thinking habits. Blushing is the most peculiar and most human of all expressions.